Hello guys, what's up? Today we will be talking about easy plant scatter and how to use it, how to make it available for you to or drag and drop to your scene or just going by Blender standard, copying collection and pasting into your scene. I will be showing you both methods and also the settings and what you can do with it. Okay, for now let me just show up the screens here so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, that's fine. Okay, here we go. That's an empty blender scene, so I have those collections here, right? And this is easy plant scatter. Okay, as soon as you open it, this is the file that you get as soon as you buy it on Gumroad or Blender Market and download it. That's the file. Okay, and that contains 25 different species of plants, and for each plant you have the easy plant scatter system. Okay, I'm an ArcVis artist, and I did this because I think that even with the available tools out there for scattering, which are great tools for scatter, as example of Scatter 5, I still need something that it fits more in my workflow. And in this case, for example, I think this system it fits better for my daily needs as an ArcVis artist. Okay, so those are the plants, and they came as a proxy. Okay, you can see they are proxies, and the collection is this one, Easy Planter Scatter. Okay, and you have all the plants here inside. Okay, and you see this little icon here means that they are asset browser available. Okay, but for now I will show you how to just copy and paste the plant that you want inside your scene using traditional Blender method like copying, collection and pasting. Okay, let's say we want to go for this guy. We see this Stipa tenacissima species, so we press right button of the mouse and then copy. So we go to our scene, choose any collection and paste data blocks, and here we go. So we have our data here. Each collection has assets and the path. Okay, you just hide the assets and you have pretty much the same thing you have there. Okay, that's our scatter system. You can go here, okay, using it as you want. Okay, that's one way. Let's delete it. That's one way. The other way is using the asset browser, which I highly recommend because that will be more pleasant for you to use it, and you have that every time you open your Blender file, you have your asset browser ready to go, and you can see the thumbnails of the plants before you drag and drop. So I think it's much better. Okay, so that's why all the plants here are asset browser ready. Okay, what you have to do, let's close this guy. Okay, what you have to do is just you go to your Blender file. Okay, and then you go to edit, preference, go to file paths, look for your asset libraries path. Okay, let's remove this guy. Let's say you have just your paths here, your asset library paths. You just will need one more. That's what I would do, and choose any path you want. Let's put, just for the sake of this example, on the desktop, let's create one. Let's call easy plant scatter. Choose this one, add to library. Okay, save it. That's the thing. Now you just have to go your file, the file that you download. Control C, go to your desktop or whatever path you have it. In our case, we created this. We Control V, so we copy and paste. Now, if we go to our Blender scene and open the asset library, look at this asset library, okay, and we go to the options here for the assets. Instead of all, you look for Easy Plant Scatter, okay. So you have all the plants here, right, with the names and everything and the icons. So now you know which plants you want to drag and drop into your scene. And the secret is, like, you drag and drop the system to your scene. But now you see, it's just that is just an instance of the collection. To bring the collection to your scene, immediately after you drag and drop, you just press Ctrl Z, and then Blender automatically brings the collection to your scene. Okay, so now you have it, and then you can use it as you want, right? So that's how I would do. And in this case, if you close Blender and open again, you don't need to do anything else. The asset library will be there, okay? If you go here, no, that's the asset library. If you go here, instead of, you will have Easy Planter Scatter, which will have all the plants, the same thing, the same plants that you, the same thing that you did before. They will be here, okay, inside your collection. They should be here, okay. They are unassigned because you didn't place them in any category, but they are here, okay. So let's move on. Let's drag and drop, let's say this guy, maybe. Do you remember what we have to do? We have to press Ctrl V. Now we have our collection here, okay. This, just hide the assets and stick with the path. Let's take this collection out of camera, okay. So that's our path. Our path is here, okay. Let's study a bit the system. There's not that much things that you must be worried about, okay. And that's the good thing. I want to have the system a simple system, okay. Nothing that brings me too much option or too much things to deal with, but also everything that I need to scatter a plant very convincing and realistic planting around the landscape, okay. So those are the settings that you have. It's not that much, and I will explain you each of them, okay. First of all, name is this guy that shows here, the letter, okay. You can increase the size of the name, okay, the space between them, okay, and even the height of the name to the plant, okay. And what is that for? That is because most of the ArcViz projects, you have a landscaping PDF or landscaping drawings. They have letters that that represents the plants, the species, okay. In this case, this is Caryopteryx clandanensis, okay, Caryopteryx clandanensis. And then, I don't know, I'm just spelling that. And the representation in the project that I was based on, it was CA, okay. And you can change. If the representation on your project is a different name, you can change the name, put AMS or whatever, okay. It's just for the sake of our organization, because sometimes you have in your scene lots of plants all over the place, and you know, for you sometimes to just take a look on the collections and try to see which plant is each. Sometimes it's a bit difficult if you have a bunch of plants all over the place. But if you go zoom in and you know exactly which plant you are talking about, okay? That's the reason for the name. I think it's something very useful. But if you don't want to see them, you just hide it, okay? Hide the name and you don't have the name anymore. So the system comes first as a proxy. I think that's the best way of having that because it will not affect your viewport performance. So it's like light by default. But if you want to see the plants, you just remove proxy. So you can see the plants on your viewport. You can render them out and you have them here, okay? But if you are on proxy and you want to render your scene, don't worry, you don't need to convert them, you don't need to remove proxy from here because as soon as we hit render, it will render the proper plant. So you don't need to be going back and forth in proxy system in order to render final images, okay? Just leave it proxy and hit render and everything will be fine, okay? So this is the collection which the plant is scattered. So this collection is here inside assets CA, okay? And this is the proxy which is inside proxy CA, okay? Flower and leaf are other assets which is kind of composing the plants. You shouldn't be worried about that, okay? The animation system is not implemented, but it's something that I had on mind, and I will maybe have this working in the future. I have a clue already how to do it in an easy way. I just need to have this optimized. I just need to have something you know, that doesn't drops your frame rate or anything else, and I'm figuring this out, okay? But for now it does nothing. It's here just because it will be in the future. The range sampling, the range resampling, I'm gonna show you when I go for the project because it makes sense more there, okay? The range is how large is your path, okay? And you can see from here that as soon as I start to increase the range, the plants in the middle starts to get bigger and the plants in the border keeps like at the size, okay? That's because we have here the dim scale factor, the dim scale and the dim scale factor, okay? This means that in this case you are saying to Blender that your plants will be scaled up as soon as they are in the center of the range, okay? Which means sometimes that's what you want, okay? If you don't want that, just put it 0 and they will be all kind of similar, okay? What's the reason for that? The reason for that is because sometimes you have a tiny path. Let's use the range, okay, something like this, and you want the plant and at the edge to be not as big as the plants in the center, to have a shape, like a pyramidal shape. So you can decrease it here, increase the factor in the middle, you see? So that gives you a good control of your planter system, okay? Let's leave it for now. Okay, so that's the range. So you have projection and projection object and projection collection, okay? Let's explain that. If you have a landscape, let's say, and in this landscape it's something like this, okay? So you have the option to project this on top of an object or on top of a collection. By default, the project, if you press projection, it's to project by object. It's to project on one object, okay? So you just pick your object, select, and here you go. Your collection is projected on this object, okay? But let's say you have multiple objects and you want your collection to project into all of them, okay? Let's, for example, add Suzanne here, okay? And I want my collection to project on top of Suzanne and the landscape, okay? It's not possible if the option is object, okay? So, but if I have both inside the same collection, let's say, let's call like project, you can call anything. Both are inside this collection, so you can choose, instead of project these on top of just one object, we can project this on top of a collection, okay? And then by default the system comes back to the original place because there's no collection here, okay? But as soon as you drag our collection and place it here, now it's a kind of it's projected on top of both Suzanne and the landscape, okay? And you can see this. If you move Suzanne here, you can see that it is affecting the entire landscape. You see, it's projecting on top of everything, okay? Let's bring this guy up, okay? You see, it's affecting everything, okay? If we move this guy here, it's projecting on top of everything which is inside this collection, okay? That's how it works. Let's just leave it like this for now. Let's hide this collection, okay? The other option is so those are the basic setups. The minimum distance, like for now, is 30 centimeters from this, means that each plant has 30 centimeters apart from each other. But if you put 1 meter, for example, and it goes like each plant has 1 meter of distance from each other. It doesn't matter how much you scatter here, it will not change, okay? But for example, if you have 3 as it was, you can always crank up or crank down the number of objects, you see, just to make them less or more according to what you want. That's very default on Blender, and you can control the amount of plants you have, okay? And you have the general scale, which will scale all of them at once. And you have scale min and scale maximum if you want to randomize the scale, you know, depends on you, right? You have the rotation on X and Y, which is the rotation on the side direction, okay? And you have your rotation on Z, which is randomizing on Z, okay? And you have the scatter noise, which is, it brings some noise into the scatter if you, for example, have a big range, okay? But you want the plants to not be that uniform, you want to have some holes inside it, you can start to play around with your noisy here, okay? And the scale of your noise, okay? How big is that? It's up to you, okay? And you can play around with it and see that you can have holes inside it, okay? And you can play around with it, you see? So it's not that uniform, alright? Alright, so let's bring the screencast again. Let's put this guy here. Okay, that's what your scatter does. So let's push it back. let's reduce the range. Okay, all right. So probability 1, 2, and 3, don't worry about this now. That's something that I'm still figuring out if it's worth it to have it or not. This means that if you have more than one plant in the same collection being scattered here, you have these guys to control the probability of each plant. But I don't think that makes sense for the system right now the way it is, but I'm leaving here just in case. Okay, don't worry about that. Dim scale factor I show you before, right? It means the size of the plants according to the edge. Okay, name I show you. So that's pretty much the system, and that's what you get with your system. It's really easy to scatter multiple plants here. Okay, let's say you want to scatter a couple more plants, and you can go here to your asset browser, okay, and bring, for example, these guys here. Control Z, don't forget that, Control Z. So you bring it here, okay, hide the assets, drag another one, maybe this one, let's say this Tiga, and Control Z, Control Z, so bring it here, okay, hide the assets, okay. So now let's say you have those, and you can start to paint something, okay. Let's bring this guy as a proxy again, show the name, okay. So you have the name, and you can go and start to play around with the same with this guy, okay. Do this, maybe do this, the same here, okay. Just do something like this, right? And let's say you want them to project on the landscape, okay. You just select your plants, bring it project, 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 okay. As I showed you before, the same thing here, the same thing here, project, choose, landscape, okay. This guy, the same thing, projection, okay. So let's remove the names so we don't get confused now. The names helps, but sometimes for visual you don't want it, okay. So now we have our system here, landscape. Let's increase these guys here. See? Easy peasy. Hit render and you see that it will render the whole thing. Right? So I figured this is very easy to use and the results are quite good and realistic, and also something that plays with how realistic the results are compared with some of the plant system. It's not, because my goal here is not to be following anything that it is called so-called accurate, okay. So my plan is to be realistic and looks realistic, okay. For that, let's say, oh, let's bring this guy up. Okay, for that, let's say I will hide these maybe and leave it this one, okay. For that, I will say I have materials here, and in my materials I have these settings. Those settings means that I can control things that we normally don't control on a PBR shader, okay. So that's something which is modified, okay. And the reason it's modified is because I want to have control over things that we normally don't have it, right? When we are playing around with our scene, let's say that this plant has a shader which is kind of something like this, green or brownie or whatever. You see? So the GI that this guy casts here on the plant, it's making the plant look like a bit darker, okay? So for me to increase the brightness of the plant, I have to go here on my settings, on the diffuse, maybe put 3, and then I start to see what is happening here. But this costs me like render time, and if I don't want to do that, I can still be on under 1 and go to the GI or go to my leaf, go to the GI of my leaf and put, instead of 2, maybe 4, and now I have the same effect as before, but I don't need to play around, I don't need to struggle that much with render time, but I also can see what is happening inside it, okay? And I can even control the color of the GI. Let's crank this to green or to red. So this is casting just red GI, okay? So I can control everything, like pure white, like a bit of bluish, a bit of more greenish, yellow, you know? You have the control of your vegetation to look how you want. Instead of you play around with your texture, until you get there, you have these settings, which is very, very important. The other thing that helps a lot, it's because depending on where the light is coming from, let me see, go to world, okay, and put this guy down, elevation maybe at 20, okay, and I wish I can see a bit of more translucency on the leaf, okay? I want to have more translucency, okay? The way I do this is cranking up the if I got the translucency all the way translucent, I can see I don't have that very nice effects on the leaf coming from the light, you see? Even if I crank the translucency. But I can play around with the brightness of the translucency, like I can put this, I don't know, 5, and then I start to have some shader coming out of the bright lights, okay? So let's leave it on 2, and you can see the difference here, okay, on the plant. Normally this is 1, and you have this, okay, and this is 1, okay? So that's what normally Blender gives that to you, okay? And then if you change your translucence bright to 3, for example, you see that you can start to get some more lighting passing through the leaves, and the brightness of your texture is also something that you can crank here, putting, for example, 2, and then you have brighter vegetation, okay? But if you want to have just the GI, you can leave it like 1 and crank your GI to 4, and you have more GI coming from your plant, and this will help you to light the branches inside and everything around it accordingly, okay? Making your scene looks more realistic, okay, in general. So let's bring it back to the default, and that's it. But you see, you can control all of this. Also the tonality of your leaves. For example, that's the tonality that we have some bluish going on, but let's crank that to red, so you can see now you have a few leaves red, okay? And you can increase the tonality multiply, so it starts to go more and more dense, okay? You can go here and change this to a bit of a yellowish or whatever you want, okay? And then you will start to have some variation on the color of your leaves. and that's up to you to make it looks more realistic. Okay, saturation, those kind of things that you can do, and you have to go into all nodes and things to make it works. Here you have all into the node setup. Okay, so your plants can be much more controlled and realistic. And for the last but not last important is this. Let's hide the path for now. Let's hide the project, the landscape. Okay, let's go to the assets. Okay, if you go to your plant asset here, look at this. You can also change the shape of a plant. I'm not talking about rotating the plant, which would be this. No, I'm not talking about this. I'm talking about this. If you go to your modifier of a plant, you have a little geometry nodes in which you can change the shape of your plant completely. Okay, so you have infinite amount of shapes that you can have for your plant. Okay, according to this randomization, right? So be aware of that you can take your plant and change it and have a totally different plant with different branch distribution or anything, something like that. Okay, let's leave it how it is for now. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys like it, and if you like it, subscribe to my channel. If you like the videos that I do, please subscribe. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to get this tool, it's available on Gumroad and Blender Market, the link is below. And I hope this tutorial is useful for you. For now, those are the plants. I have 25 plants. They are highly uh, the clients normally ask for those plants on landscaping projects in here in North America, but my plan is adding more and more plants as my project goes, and plants from all over the places, okay, around the world, not just North America plants, and make our life easier and more friendly use to work with landscapes, right? I hope that's the goal, and I wish you guys like it, and see you soon. Bye bye.